Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unpacking the Health and Fitness Roadmap. It is 4 o'clock on, what is this, Wednesday afternoon? I don't know. The heat has gotten to my brain. I'm a little frazzled right now. But welcome. I'm so grateful for those of you that are attending this, that are live, because these sessions are only as good as the involvement you have. The questions you have are really helpful for us to be able to know what's most important to highlight for you. So my name is Morgan. I am the CEO of the Calaveras County Chamber of Commerce. It's a pleasure to have you all join here. And I want to introduce the lovely ladies that are on here in just a moment. And before I do that, I'm sure Kristen will talk a little bit about this, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that today's talk is really in guidance of future opening. And I'm saying that probably not clearly enough, but gyms are not officially allowed to open yet. Our hope and our dream was to be able to host this call so that you would have time to prepare before actual opening. So that way, once the ordinance comes down, then you're going to be able to open because you'll already have your ducks in a row. You're going to be so ready to go. It'll be unbelievable. So that being said, I'm really excited to introduce you to these people here. So Kathy, you want to take it away and introduce yourself first?
Sure. I'm Kathy Galino. I'm the Calaveras County Economic and Community Development Director, and I'm very privileged to work with all these ladies on this panel today. They're fabulous, and I'm really here to help businesses recover from this, to grow from this, and to be resilient in the future going forward.
Awesome. Kristen, down to you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Stranger. I'm the Health and Human Services Agency Director with Calaveras County, and Public Health is the division within Health and Human Services Agency, so we play an integral role in terms of the COVID-19 response, and so we're here also to provide additional feedback, and again, we've had a number of reopenings for various sectors, so we're slowly starting to get the hang of how this is starting to look as the state provides additional information to who can open and in what fashion, all of which usually happens with very little to no warning to the local health departments. So we are, I think this is, I really want to give kudos to the organizers for doing a session in advance of industry being allowed to reopen, because we don't know when that guidance is going to come, and this is a great way to prepare.
Thanks, Kristen. And Debbie, down to you. You're on mute.
Thank you, Morgan. Debbie Ponce with Destination Angels Camp, and Destination Angels Camp is a public-private partnership with the City of Angels Camp with its focus on economic development. So I'm pleased to join in on these webinars and helping our small businesses reopen and trying to figure out what to do and how to do it, and most importantly, do it safely.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start out by, I'd love for Kristen to give her information about how we are even able to have this conversation right now. Meaning, how the heck did we go from we can't even leave our houses or do anything, no shopping, nothing, to now we're talking about potential in the future opening gyms. And so I'm going to have her describe that, and I want to give one little update for those that are live in attendance. If you have questions that you would like for the panel to answer, please either raise your hand if you want to be brought into the conversation live, or you can put your questions in the Q&A and we will answer them. So just to give you that heads up. Kristen, take it away.
Hi, okay, so how did we get here? That was a great introduction. So as you know, when COVID-19 became more known to everybody, and we had the state issue a stay-at-home order, of which our local health department issued a local order that also clarified that state order, right? It basically provided information that reinforced the state order, but available here local to our community. And the roadmap to recovery is broken into 4 stages, and I encourage you to go onto our website. We actually have it pretty broken down in a really easy to understand infographic that'll kind of walk you through as a whole where that comes from. But in stage 1, which is the stage we spent a decent amount of time in as this entire state, that's when we had only essential businesses open, very limited amounts of outside of the home type of actions that could be occurring. And what the state did is they allowed, this was probably about 4 weeks ago now, 3 to 4 weeks ago, there began to get more energy behind the idea of allowing local jurisdictions and local, oh, thanks Morgan, that's great.
Yeah.
Local jurisdictions having various different rates of disease prevalence, particularly in the more rural counties like ourselves, right? We were having lower number of cases, our healthcare system wasn't as impacted, and we were all kind of being held to the exact same standards. So that advocacy began to be heard by the state, and that's what created the process for the state to allow for communities that did have lower disease prevalence, that did have the ability to contact trace, that did have the ability to provide emergency non-congregate emergency shelter for vulnerable populations, to be able to make the case that and attest to the fact that we could move into stage 2. And in stage 2, there were additional industries that had the ability to reopen with modifications, and that guidance has been provided by the state. So you saw kind of like a 2-part, right, when we moved into stage 2. As a state, we had a couple of industries that were allowed to reopen with modifications, but then for those of us who submitted attestations that were accepted, such as Calaveras County, we were accepted very early on, we were able to have additional industries be able to reopen with modifications. And so that's why you're starting to see the dine-in restaurants that are able to reopen with modifications. You're able to see retail that used to be only in-person retail, that used to be only limited to the attestation counties. That's now since expanded over the weekend to the remainder of the state. So that is where we are right now. Just for clarity's sake, because these are some pointers that I'm learning along the way, industries that are listed in stage 3, of which, you know, fitness studios and gyms, they are currently part of phase 3. Those do not, Calaveras County can't attest, and we can't take ourselves any further beyond the stage that we're currently in. The state has limited us to be able to only move into expanded stage 2, which is what we're at right now. And we have maximized and provided the maximum flexibility for our local community members as we're part of stage 2. In addition, one of the other questions that I regularly get asked, and I know the answer will be the same for when we do move into stage 3 at some point, or the gyms get moved into stage 2. I really don't know how the state will roll that out. But Calaveras Public Health is taking the stance that we are providing the guidance documents, providing the checklist, taking part in webinars such as this. And we know that our community members are responsible and awesome, and we don't need to see your individual plans. We're providing the guidance out there, and we're not issuing an additional directive here in Calaveras County requiring you to then turn something into us before you can reopen. As soon as you have the green light from the state and or us communicated by us, we encourage your reopening in those modified fashions. And again, that replugging the purpose of this webinar is to help you prepare for what those modified fashions are going to look like. So anyways, that's kind of here we are at this current time. This is a fluid situation, changing all of the time. And I would really like to, and Morgan's got it up here on the webpage, we pay a lot of attention to our webpage and updating it as quickly as possible. All of our press releases, all of our videos, all of the guidance, FAQs, that's all gets loaded there. So I would encourage you to make that kind of your go-to spot, as well as the CDPH roadmap webpage, of which we do many links to. So that's my
awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate that explanation. No matter how many times I hear it, I always feel like I pick out something new and different. So I know you're in this and you're constantly feeling like you're probably saying the same thing over and over, but it's really helpful for me. So I imagine it is for everyone else. So thank you. Kathy, would love for you to highlight what you think based on other states, and Kristen obviously pulling into this, and Debbie as well. what it could potentially look like for us here in Calaveras.
So one of the things that I'm seeing is kind of a theme. As the state is providing the guidance and the checklists, there's a very important theme, which is obviously protecting ourselves, our families, our employees, and our customers. So given that the various industries have been allowed to open, they have very specific mitigation measures or guidance. So there's 6 key parts of all of the guidance documents that are on the state's website. And we might want to put that link up on the chat box too, so people can constantly refresh your browser and check it daily as guidance gets loaded and information gets updated. This is a very fluid situation, and I think it's great that we're able actually to get out in front of businesses so that they know what they'll likely need to do before they can open. So there's 6 key parts in the documents. It's the purpose, the reason why this is, which I just mentioned. Developing a worksite specific plan where you identify where your risks are, where your points of contact or potential exposure would be, and then mitigating those measures through employee training, control measures, and screening. This is actually, I'll get into more detail on these later. And then cleaning and disinfecting, obviously very important in gyms. And I know at the gyms I've been at before, you typically have a spray bottle, you've got some paper towels, and you clean your equipment. I always did it before and after, but they're saying, well, if somebody did it before you, then you don't need to do it after, but I do it anyways. And then physical distancing, especially for places where you're doing yoga or classes and are in closer contact with people. So in developing a written worksite plan, there's some great information that's on the state's website through OSHA and the CDC. Let me see if I can pull up one of these. And this is great guidance for any industry. So let's see if I can share my screen. Gotten too good at Zoom meetings now. Oh, I don't have it. I'm not a host, you're a host.
She'll be able to share.
Okay. So I just want folks to see a little bit of the resources and the links, and I will put the links in the chat box so that way if people can't make it to this particular meeting, they can log on whenever and see this as it's being recorded for future use. But then telling your employees to please not come to work if they're sick. This is a standard for any industry and any business. If they have fevers, chills, sore throat, have them ask them to please stay home. Or if you yourself as an owner operator are not feeling well, cancel your appointments, cancel your classes. And then working with, having face coverings, not face masks, because face masks are very different than face coverings. And a lot of people they kind of get them mixed up. Face mask, we talk about like N95. Those are really for our healthcare workers, our professional first responders, and those in public health. That's not for the regular public. And the face coverings, I'm sure people have seen them. They're all over. They're anything made from cloth. There's other ones that are not N95 that are available. And I'm not sure, Morgan, if you still have some of that PPE, but that'll be something that'll come in the future. And then making sure what your temperatures are, your body temperatures. So it's best to have, obviously something that's not touched by others. So one of the options that people are doing are having their employees do their checks at home, and that anything over 100 degrees means you shouldn't see customers or you shouldn't come into work at that point. And do visual checks too. I mean, sometimes people feel fine and then later in the day they're feeling kind of tired and look a little flushed. Keep an eye on those cues. Most cases, both the employer or the worker and the customer must wear a face covering, and provide and ensure workers have all the equipment they need, whether it's masks, hand sanitizer, and all the products that they would need, being involved in that business industry. You can stagger your schedules to limit the number of people that are in your gym or studio at any one time. limit the number of people in the class, and then maybe stagger, on different days of the week and different times. I'd already mentioned about the social distancing. That's been very common, is the 6 foot rule, as they call it, between workers and customers. And then this is the tough one: avoid sharing of equipment. So I have seen a couple of different state guidance that I'll share here after I kind of get through some of the high points. And you can kind of see where various states have done things a little differently. It's sometimes it's difficult to not share equipment, but if in the way that you can, maybe have people go in kind of a circuit, or if they're doing floor work, they just get assigned a ball, or bring their own ball or their own equipment with them. So such as, balls and bags and those types of things during a single workout session. Follow disinfection protocols between the users. As I mentioned earlier, flat surfaces and areas that are common, like countertops and mats and door handles, those are really high risk areas that need to really have special attention. Limiting access to break areas, lunchrooms, and restrooms. And I hate to say it, but discouraging people from, after their class is over, hanging out or getting there early to hang out. That's where you're going to have contact, people together. And that's a tough thing to stop or to limit. But a great thing that you can do is display in your business the safety measures that you are taking. So I know on the Chamber's website, they have the business toolkit, which is a fabulous document that Morgan helped put together. And it's got some great, just standard kind of practice information, as well as documents. And I don't know, Morgan, if you want to pull that up now. There it is. So this document is available to you all, to anybody, and anybody who wants to get on here. But it talks about the roadmap to recovery and the stages, but great information about disinfecting, getting prepared, the resources that are available to you. And here's one, hey, back up a little bit. So this is one of the resources, because going into this, when restaurants were first allowed to open, they were scrambling because they're like, I don't know where I can get sanitizer. I don't know where I can get disinfectant, where I can get face coverings. These are local resources that are available for us here and can help you get prepared. Again, no crystal ball. Don't know exactly when gyms and fitness studios and such will be able to open, but just start to think and start to plan.
Can I pause you for just a moment? I'm going to take a moment to do a little plug here, since we're talking about PPE. These 3 vendors all have PPE. Please use the contact information that is here. If you use a generalized number, sometimes you might get a different answer, but those specific contacts, you should be able to get the PPE that you need, as well as access the catalogs that are on there. I say that because I've talked to many businesses who have tried Amazon, who have tried local businesses here, like grocery stores or Rite Aids and stuff. It's going to be nearly impossible to get the quantity and the type of PPE that you're going to need unless you do a vendor like this. What's nice is that I know that 2 of these provide free and even same-day delivery. So same day is probably not as important for you right now as if you knew you were opening tomorrow. But I wanted to give that insight to you guys. You can see that you can access that on our webpage at calaveras.org. The other reason I'm saying that is because thankfully to Health and Human Services and Kristen Stranger down below here, we have access to a selection of PPE, currently just predominantly gloves and masks, or face coverings, I should say. But we have them at no cost for you until you receive your PPE order. And so again, this is free PPE. I'm sure that you have seen it in some capacity online, but we do have it. It's located at the chamber. And so you can contact me, and I'll put my contact information in the chat, but it's 209-754-5400, or you can email us at chamber@calaveras.org. And either way, to set up a time when we can get you some free PPE until you receive your first order. Back to you, Kathy.
So if we scroll down a little bit more, there's just, this thing is packed full of great information, but there are links here. Okay, hold up. You went too fast. There's some links here that are great opportunities. That's the OSHA website for training topics, for publications. There's the CDC business resource. These are all hot links. Great employee training opportunities, and also educating yourself as owners, operators. Okay, now we can scroll down. I wish I had control. I keep moving my scroller and it's not working. So here's what we were talking about, developing your written WORKSITE specific plan. You guys should be working on this now and identifying all the contact information you need to have in there, the resources, your training, and then there's a sample WORKSITE specific plan risk assessment that we put together just kind of as an idea. It's not official, it's not formal, it just basically lays out identifying your risk in the various locations, what the activity is, and what your mitigation measures are, what you're doing to mitigate contamination or impacts or exposures. And it's just based on the criteria that the state has set pretty much for all of the industries in the state. And then, you know, evaluating it, what's working, what's not working. Maybe an employee forgot to do something, you might need to address that the next day, having your daily briefings. And I know for a lot of you guys, you don't have a lot of employees, but the opportunity to update that so that it's always a fresh document. And if we scroll down a little bit more, there's the employee training verification. Keep going. There's employee temperature sheet, employee health check. This is a nice one. That's a fillable. But here's the great thing. So I know when I go into a business and I can see right when I walk in the door what they're doing, that they're alert and aware, that they're cleaning, that they're doing all the things they should do to keep me safe. I have a lot more confidence going into that business. So this is a great thing where you can just post it, your business, what you're doing, and do your part. Ask your employees or ask your customers to please do their part as well. And then this is something that we had for, it's just a great tool. It's just a stop sign that's, you can laminate it, flip it over. We had that for the restaurants that were getting capacity issues when they were trying to keep their capacity at a smaller number. But again, have signage. It's really, really important for businesses and for customers to feel good about going in and knowing that you're doing the best you can. Other tips that I've seen are, you know, allowing for fresh air exchange, whether you can leave your doors open, using high efficiency air ventilation systems, and then adopting a daily wipe in and wipe out process where you come in, you clean before you have your customers in, and then at the end of the day you do like a final clean, trying to keep that cleaning process up to date. And then there is the link if you are not able to get PPE, which is personal protective equipment or sanitizing, disinfecting materials. EPA does have a website. It's www. And I'll just put it in the chat, that might make it easier. So that's a really good resource too. So what can you do to prepare to have customers come in? A couple of things. And what I've seen, there's a really good checklist that the state of Texas has, but you need to have a plan for not just keeping yourself and your employees safe, but your customers safe as well. So if you're doing a class, you just want to make sure that your customers actually like do a text or they do a virtual check-in. So that way you know how many will be there. You might want to have a conversation with, them, or saying, or asking, so how have you been feeling? You want to make sure that somebody isn't coming in who isn't feeling well, or that may have somebody in their home, a husband, a child, a spouse, a friend that's living there that's sick. You don't want to have that potential and not infection, but the virus coming into your business. And if they do, then you might want to say, I know this is what they're doing with some of the other industries, is to have them wait at least 10 or 14 days before they come back to the gym, just to make sure. As I mentioned, stagger the number of people in classes and workout times. Having clients bring their own towel, or their own equipment, and then, or if you want to provide towels, then making sure you give them a towel to use during their session and workout, and have a hamper where they can drop those off. But then obviously you'll be responsible for sanitizing and disinfecting those towels. So whatever works best for you. But again, we don't want, towels and touching all over the place. Something that's being encouraged also is to not allow for extra family and friends that are not part of the classes, the sessions, or the workouts. I know sometimes it's hard to have childcare, or you've got a friend who wants to come with you and hang out, but really discourage that. The customers should be the only ones that are coming in and hanging out. So offering daycare or other things that encourage more family and friends to come is not a good way to go. And then consider using a checklist or an audit system, something that you have in writing where it shows how often you're cleaning and the areas that you're cleaning. And if you have a staff member who's identified to do that specific cleaning, what their regular schedule is for doing that. If you have payment transactions, I think most people do that electronically. There's some great programs out there like Venmo, PayPal, Facebook, where you can do your paying up front. You don't have to worry about cash or card handling at the time that people are coming into the gym. So Morgan, if we have the opportunity, can we pop up the link I sent you for the Texas draft, or the Texas checklist?
I just had it up. Let's see.
This one is a pretty good one, I thought. I mean, it seemed very straightforward. It made you think about things that you may not normally consider. I know that when the restaurants opened back up, there were times that I had gotten calls like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. The checklist really helps, get you thinking about how you can minimize exposures, minimize, close contact. You want to keep that social distancing. It's really a big deal. As well as the personal protection, the PPE. So in this guidance, and I can throw the link up in a little bit. Let me pull, so I can see it. I can't see the little screen. I'm on a little tiny laptop, so, and I still have my glasses on.
Is that big enough?
Yeah, perfect. So again, these are all the things that we've talked about, and I think I've spoken to some of you, and I would like to hear back, or I'd like to hear from some of you that are on the webinar that are in the industry. I've talked to some of you that you've kind of developed your own ideas and thoughts, and this might be a great forum to share what you're doing at your gym, your fitness studio. But there's, there is no standard yet. The state will be putting that out at some point. But these are just like great ideas, and I can put these links up.
Can I call someone out right now? And I
Absolutely.
didn't ahead of time, so apologies. But Miss Sarah Gray, I'm going to bring you in because I want you to talk about something that you shared with me yesterday. So don't hate me, but all right. Can you unmute yourself? Are you there?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, Sarah.
No worries.
Yesterday, Sarah owns Better Together Fitness in San Andreas, and she had a really great idea yesterday for her classes. Obviously, classes are huge for her, but do you want to kind of share some of your thoughts around that, what you might try?
Oh, yeah, I was mentioning that I thought that the social distancing was going to become a little bit of a problem in our class sizes. The studio size that we have wouldn't allow for a bunch of members to partake in the class with enough distance. So our Zoom meetings or gym or workout classes have been super successful. So I plan to still hold a lot of the same times, closing the studio doors off and allowing people still to do it online until we can be back full force in the gym.
I thought that was a great idea. So thank you for sharing that. Do you have any other thoughts since we last chatted about some things that you might implement or questions that you may have?
Not at the moment. I'm definitely taking it all in. Super thankful for you guys for this. And we plan to have like a brainstorming collaboration after all of this as more information comes out.
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me put you on the spot.
No problem.
I thought that was a great idea when she told me that, because she's really been successful at engaging her membership outside of the four walls. And so why not still continue on that? They're already accustomed to it. It's just, you know, she has really successful classes. And so it's still providing that, but just in a healthy way. So I thought that was pretty neat. If anybody else, I'm going to do this little plug-in really quickly here. If anybody has any questions, I know I said this in the beginning, or has anything they want to throw in or suggest, either raise your hand if you want to be brought into the panelist chat, or you can put your questions if you just want to write them in on the Q&A. So feel free at any
I was going to call out Jennifer, but.
Did you want to call out someone else?
Yeah, I want to call out Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer.
I know.
She's raising her hands.
Yay! Unmute yourself, Jennifer.
I know this doesn't sound like Jennifer, and I'm sorry. This is Randy, your husband. So
Okay, Jennifer, you sound so different.
Well, you know, the social distancing is, you know. What would you like to call me out on, Kathy? I think I can answer.
Well, because I think that Jennifer's been doing some great, you know, videos and, you know, really engaging her customers as well. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. She's doing live classes, and Summer, our daughter, is an instructor, and one other instructor. They go down, utilize the studio, obviously, because you and I have had a conversation because people were calling saying we were open, even though it was just, you know, music coming out of the doors. But yeah, virtual classes. She's actually got people that have, you know, signed up from Montana, from San Francisco, and she's got a good library on there. So yeah, I mean, she's trying to stay active with it and keep her members motivated, and fingers crossed, you know, they come back. So that's what we're looking at. And I actually, would this be an okay time to ask 2 quick questions?
Please.
Okay. I saw on the news, and I'm probably incorrect on this, that the state of California was going to help some of the phase 3 businesses with free disinfectants and cleaning supplies. I know you had touched on that earlier, Megan, about, you know, you guys have kind of a little stockpile before your order comes in. Have you guys heard of any of that at all? And my second follow-up question is, because my wife said that I have to take really good notes or I'm done for, what is the website that I go on to see all the stuff that you guys have been putting up during this conversation?
You want to go first, Kristen?
Sure, I'll take the first part and then start the link conversation, which is a lengthy one, but we kind of have a place to go. So I don't recall hearing specifically phase 3 businesses being provided PPE specifically, as you're directly saying at the moment. You are correct though, in the sense that the state has made available supplies, PPE supplies, that are meant to be utilized by locals for local private businesses. And that is in fact the way we're operationalizing that here in Calaveras County is through the partnership with the chamber. So whenever we get supplies from our state resources, and public health, when we get supplies from our state resources that we have the ability to make available to the private businesses, the way we're operationalizing that is by giving it to the chamber, and then the chamber's distributing to those individuals who need them. So that's where that is definitely coming from. I do think, though, what's really helpful, and Morgan already knows this, but you know, we're working with what we've got right now, right, and what we're being provided. Oh, sorry, apologies, I'm in my office. So if there's something that you need, especially as the guidance gets released, or when it gets released, or when it gets preemptively released, and we don't have access to that, still let Morgan know, because that provides us the ability to continue to request that PPE for the future. We don't know specifically what the PPE is going to look like for the gyms right now. As Kathy said, the guidance for gyms and for fitness facilities, we know it's going to follow that same format that all the other industries are, right? It's going to have the cleaning and disinfecting protocols. It's going to have the social distancing things, et cetera. But within that, there's going to be specifics for fitness industry that we just don't know where they're going to land yet. So my best advice would be right now is to go look at any other industry, you know, the salons and barbershops, dine-in restaurants. It doesn't really matter. They all kind of follow that same format. And it's likely you're going to see the gloves, the face coverings, the increased sanitation materials and such for in terms of what's likely going to be required or strongly recommended is one of the state's favorite words to use. I did want to say, you know, there's so many websites and so many different things around right now. I think what we've tried to do as community partners in this county is to have it be like the landing point. So if you go on the Calaveras County Public Health, we have a COVID-19 webpage. There's a tab that says Roadmap to Recovery. We've said, you know, for this industry, click here. For this industry, click here. We're trying to make it as clean as possible because there's so many statewide links that are available. Oh, yes, this is it right here. So this is always a great place. It's just the COVID-19 Calaveras County webpage is a great place, or also the Chamber's webpage. The Chamber I've been all over that webpage. That's another great place to get all of this information. That would be my advice to try to navigate the 50 million websites that exist in this world now with additional guidance. I also wanted to add, just because you pointed on this, and I think this is an important thing, is that, you know, this guidance that you're going to see, it's going to be general enough, and it's going to be general enough for where if your specific business doesn't have the ability to do a certain thing. So let me back into that a little bit. It's about operating within the spirit of that guidance, creating additional safety measures to your best extent possible. So an example I gave to the dine-in group when we had this was, you know, if it says in the guidance, we recommend that you have your greeter do X, Y, and Z, that doesn't mean you have to go hire a greeter. You know, if your business model doesn't allow for that, it doesn't allow for that. If you're a smaller entity, this guidance, again, is meant for the businesses that are very large, but then also the very small. So use that to your advantage, right? And to be creative within the spirit of doing your very best to mitigate risk to the extent possible. You know, I was just looking through the salon guidance right now, and it says in there, consider hands-free devices. You know, like hands-free, the sanitizer thing. If your space doesn't allow for you to provide that, then you do a pump bottle, and that's as much as that can be expected of you. This is a very, you know, everybody's just doing their very best, and we know that from our community too. And we just want you to know that public health is going to do our very best, and actually all the partners, I can speak for everybody on this, like, to support you. And we're not trying to take the position of, we heard you don't have your hands-free device, we're gonna, you know, like, that's not where we're coming from. We're trying our very best to be supportive and get that information out there.
Awesome. That answered everything. I think I might even get dinner tonight. So thank you very much. And I will mute myself now.
Thanks. And then also, just to answer the second part of your question. So all of these recordings that we've done for each sector are all going to be posted on social media. My my processing took a little bit longer for the last one we had at 1 o'clock. So I'll have that up as soon as this meeting's over. And probably within an hour, I'll have this meeting up. It will be shared on the Calaveras Chambers YouTube page, Facebook page. We'll share a link on Instagram and also via email, which through these partners that we have also, they share out as well. So if you're not already following Calaveras Chamber, I recommend that you do. We post a lot of resources on there too, so we'll have that there as well for you. We have a question from Sherry Gallagher. So Sherry, I'm going to bring you into the conversation here. Go ahead and unmute yourself and talk whenever you're ready, Sherry.
Hi, everyone. I had a question and a comment. One of the things that we're doing to help with the disinfecting process, we have a lot of equipment in our gyms, and it's an ongoing process to keep that sanitized. One of the best things, our members are great about wiping everything down after they use it. And then we also have additional floating staff that walks around and sanitizes right behind them. But we've also purchased a mister. It has an electrostatic sprayer that puts a positive charge on the disinfectant before it's sprayed. So it allows the spray to wrap around the metal objects and adhere to them better. So that was one way that we wanted to add that extra layer of comfort to our staff as well as our members, that we are doing everything we can to keep everything as sanitized as possible. Because if you listen to the news, everybody talking about gyms being so nasty and full of germs, but if you actually visit a gym and you watch how they practice, how they do business, they're constantly spraying and disinfecting things. So we just went a little bit above and beyond that with this sprayer. I thought it would be a good way to help assure our members and our staff that we are trying to keep everything as clean as possible. We have had a lot of meetings talking about and looking at all the different businesses that are opening and looking at the list and things that they're being required to do. And one thing that was interesting, Kathy, when you were talking about telling people to bring in their own towels, bring in their own equipment, we were saying that about mats and yoga mats, and then it was like, wait a minute, that's almost like a grocery bag. They're telling people don't bring in the grocery bag. So I'm kind of anti having people bring in their own things, because I think if you look at the grocery stores and the approach they're taking with the grocery bags, is that kind of like the same thing? I don't know. That's a question.
It's a really good question. I think it just depends on your particular, what works for you. I mean, I think Kristen really kind of hit the point that whatever we can do to limit those impacts. I mean, if I bring in my own yoga mat and then I leave with my yoga mat, I mean, yeah, I guess where my yoga mat was on the floor may have gotten the floor dirty, but I mean, then you've got to look at what is your time and materials and staff to clean yoga mats, every day.
With the sprayer, a little bit less.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an area, I feel pretty confident in saying this, I think this will be an area where you will see specific guidance from the state about materials, right? Yoga mats or other types of things. I believe that they will probably provide some more specifics on, we recommend, or you should do sanitize all your mats and not allow external versus the opposite. So it's not my favorite answer to give because it's not a super clean one, but I think that's one you'll see clarity on.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry, before you go, can you share where you got your mister?
We researched quite a few places, but the one that I found that I like the best, we purchased from, what's the name? I think it's Southeastern. Let me double check. Yeah, it looks like it was from Southeastern Equipment and Supply.
Okay, awesome. Just in case anybody else is interested. Thank you for sharing your question.
Sure.
Awesome. We have another question from Teddy Fullerton. When you refer to PPE, who is required to wear this in the gym?
So I can take this one, and I'm going to start with the we don't know yet, because that's the truth. We don't know who's going to be required. Based off of previous guidance, I feel pretty confident in saying that it'll be at a minimum the staff, and then some sort of a lessened level of recommendations for members. And it'll likely be, again, the gloves, the face coverings, and those types of materials.
Okay. And then Amanda has a question. So I'm going to bring Amanda in here. Amanda, go ahead and unmute yourself. You're good to go.
Hey guys, so I actually own a yoga studio, so I just want to touch bases on the whole mat thing. So when this whole thing started breaking out, my clients did purchase their own mats, and we were really on top of it with the hand sanitizer, and I offered disinfectant for them. So I had multiple bottles and just was able to disinfect through that. And then I allowed between class times to disinfect the whole floor and allow the floor to dry. So when it comes to that sense with the props and stuff, I know it's kind of like, you know, maybe they're cross-contaminating, bringing their stuff from home, setting it on your floor and stuff, which could be a concern. But at the end of the day, then it lessens our cost of having to do those supplies and stuff. So it's just kind of one of those things I think we're going to have to like weigh out in a sense. But then I did have a question about like doing more outdoor, because I've always done like smaller class sizes because I use the MindBody app so I can regulate how many people I've always had in my studio. But I'm curious about like with the group fitness and stuff, because, you know, like as she was saying earlier, like the gym may not allow for that size. Is outdoor an exception because outdoor recreation is open now, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, so you're right on, you're hitting the nail on the head. Again, guidance is not out yet, but I feel pretty confident also that there's going to be a recommendation to take classes and fitness instruction outside as much as possible. We see that in the dining guidance. We're seeing it in the preliminary discussions about schools and more open air. So I think you're right on track in terms of in your preparing for looking at how you can create additional physical distance barriers utilizing outside, and that would all be something that is completely allowable.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. I am going to hop over to Debbie Ponte. And again, if you guys have any more questions, feel free to either raise your hand to jump into the panelist conversation, or you can write your questions in the chat or the Q&A. Debbie, what do you have to add to this?
So I like what Kristen said. There are so many sites out there and so much information out there that it's very easy to get very distracted, and it's very easy to find conflicting information. And sometimes you want to read what's maybe you really want to hear, but it's not the right thing to do. So between the local website that is posted in our chat room is a really good resource for anything related to public health and COVID and the guidance and checklists. The Chamber, in partnership with the city and the county, has put together a very nice Welcome Back to Business kit, lots of resources. I really encourage you to look at all of those things. A couple of things that I tend to highlight with folks that I meet with is if your business has been closed for a period of time, it's important that you check with your liability insurance to let them know that you have reopened and to what status. It's also important that if you're going to be doing more outdoor activity than maybe you haven't in the past, or it's been limited, that you are letting them know what your business practice looks like this day and age, so that you are covered for your business, your clients, you, etc. It's really important that you touch base with your insurance, because they too may have specific requirements that aren't listed in these resources that you might want to take a look at and make sure that you're following everything that you need to do. It's been my experience, if an insurance can probably not pay a claim, they're going to, run you through the ringer. So it's just really important that you cover that basis. And for gyms, there's not an overreaching state licensing agency that really licenses these kinds of businesses. So OSHA is critical in that you pay attention to OSHA. They have wonderful resources there. If you have employees or even sometimes contract people, they want to make sure that you're covering dotting your I's and crossing your T's on your training, on your safety aspect of what you're doing. And some people say, oh, I don't have an employees, I have contract people, or they're independent contractors. Regardless, cover yourself. Make sure that they know what your policy is as the owner of the business, and that they're doing temperature checks or they're doing sanitation or whatever it might be. So don't assume because they're an independent contractor that they're doing the right thing. It's your business. They're invited into your business. So it's important that they too have some kind of documentation that demonstrates that they're doing everything that you're requiring them to do and that you need to do. So those are really good resources throughout the Back to the Business Kit. It's not something you can sit down and peruse and get it all in an hour. It takes some time to sit down and look at it, read it. And, you know, if you need a signage for your business, or you're just looking for a checklist or something, there's many resources. So you don't have to go out and truly reinvent a lot of these forms and things like that that are being asked of you to do. So many resources on the Back to Business Kit.
One of the reasons that I'm so proud of the community partnerships with the county, the city, and the chamber, and also other entities in different sectors, is because we all have a common desire to have a unified message going across to the county, because it is confusing. You've heard several people now say that. We know it is, especially with you guys, because you're one of the last ones to open. We recognize that you're being so patient, and there's still no official release date. The Back to Business Toolkit is a live document, meaning that it is updated on a regular basis, because we want to provide the most up-to-date and most accurate information for you. So it's not meant to be printed aside from the signage. It's meant to go to as a resource, to look at the links, to look at those resources, because I've probably updated, I don't know, like at least a couple dozen times, truthfully, since we first launched it. So I just want to make that clear to you. We have a question from Elizabeth Barrett. She said, will a written worksite specific plan be legally required by the county or state once stage 3 is open?
So I can take that. So far, all of the industries have had requirements that they adhere to the guidance for their particular industry. And part of that guidance is a requirement to have a worksite plan. So I'd anticipate that it's safe to say any business in stage 3 will also be held to those exact same parameters. And so because that's from the state, and then of course local public health is following along with that guidance, yeah, you could anticipate that will be a requirement as well.
Awesome. Kathy, what other comments do you have for the group here?
So of course I always put my economic development hat on, and one of the things that is important to me is that the businesses have the resources they need, not just from a PPE standpoint, but maybe from a technical assistance or a financial assistance. I know early on some businesses, tried to get idle funds or PPP protection for their employees. And if people are struggling with those issues, I have some rabbits up my sleeve. Can't really speak to them yet, but I'm moving forward on doing some grant programs and loan programs for small businesses, a revolving loan fund. I don't have the money yet. I'm going to send my application in this week, and I have authorization to do that. Thank you, Kristen, too, through the Community Development Block Grant. But I just want businesses to know that there's a resource here, especially from a financial and recovery standpoint.
Yeah. Kristen, can you talk a little bit about the new testing site?
Oh, yeah. So we have a new testing site going live. It's a state OptumServe testing site. So you've been hearing about those on the news. The state's been standing up testing sites throughout the community, throughout the entire state. So Calaveras County is getting a testing site. It's going to be at the fairgrounds. It's going to go live, I believe, on Friday. It's a press release went out with the link of how to sign up. All of that information is available on our website as well. And oh, you're on the registration page. So this is what it looks like when you get there. Again, you can always start on our website because there's a million things everywhere. But again, Calaveras County Fairgrounds, starting Friday, anyone can be tested. You don't need to be symptomatic, like has historically kind of been required. There was parameters. It's open to the general public, even though it's primarily serving Tuolumne and Calaveras residents, because that's who we went in to ask for that resource to our local community. It is available to anybody. But again, that is, I think, the most pertinent information. And if you have any questions, you can always call Public Health. Our phone number is on our website, and we'll be able to easily answer that question. Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just make one more reminder piece about two things. First of all, the Back to Business Toolkit found at calaveras.org. Please go to that. There is signage just to show you. I thought I had it up here. Okay, well, I can really quick. But just as a reminder, when we have this information up, it's not meant for you to print out the entire packet. It's meant as a guide. There are things that you may choose to print out that could be helpful as a resource for you and your team. But we also do have signage, these both at the end. If you would like those printed out for you, I'm more than happy on behalf of the chamber to share that. Oh, I'm not even sharing with you, am I? That's hilarious. Let's try that again. Okay, sorry about that. So what I was saying was this guide is not meant for you to print out the whole thing, just certain pieces if they're helpful for you. If you would like any of this signage printed, if you don't have that at your business available, just let me know. I'm more than happy to print that for you. And as a reminder, the Chamber, on behalf of Health and Human Services, does have free PPE, currently gloves and face coverings, and it is available to you in the interim until you receive your PPE order. So if you would like to order that, again, I'll put my information here in the chat, but it's chamber@calaveras.org is the email you can send it to, or you can call us at 754-5400. Any last thoughts from any of you? No? Awesome. Well, thank you. That was simple, but I appreciate the participation, whether you wanted to or not, or you got voluntold. And it really does help us. It helps people that are watching this on replay. Like I said, this will be up in the next hour. So look on social media if you want to share with somebody that could not make this live call today. It's okay. We plan on having it up there. And thank you all so much for participating. Best of luck. Our fingers are crossed that your opening will happen very soon. But in the meantime, our goal is to help give you as many resources and tips and tricks and guidance as we possibly can. So hang in there. Stay Calaveras strong, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.